She waved her arms like she owned the place, shouting, "Everyone park here. The HOA party starts in 10 minutes. I stood at the fence, arms crossed, watching as 1, 2, then 10 massive buses rolled right through my open gate. Each one carried families, kids, loud music, folding tables, everything. My land had turned into her personal festival ground. She didn't even look at me. She just barked orders at volunteers like she was the mayor of the world. I asked, calm but sharp, "Karen, you realize this is private property, right?" She glanced over her sunglasses and smirked. "It's all community land, Robert. The HOA approved it." I almost laughed. Community land? I'd paid off every inch of this ranch myself. No HOA papers, no membership, nothing. But she had that tone, like she was testing me, daring me to push back. Then I noticed something that made my stomach tighten. She was collecting money. A man in a bright polo handed her a fat envelope. She slipped it into her purse fast, like she thought no one saw. That wasn't just a community barbecue, she was running a paid event on my land. Kids started trampling my garden, tables went up over my gravel driveway, and someone even plugged a bounce house into my barn's power outlet. I stood there for a long minute, letting it all unfold. I wanted to see just how far she'd go. When the 10th bus pulled in, the air thick with exhaust and pop music, I reached into my pocket and felt the cold shape of my padlock. My old gate still had the steel latch from when I used to keep cattle. I waited until the last car cleared the entrance, then slowly swung the gate shut. The loud clank of the lock echoed like a gunshot. Karen turned, her face twisting in confusion. "What are you doing?" she shouted, storming toward me. I smiled just a little. "Oh, don't mind me," I said quietly. "You wanted a party, right? Let's make sure no one leaves early." Her jaw dropped. The crowd kept laughing, music booming, completely unaware that I'd just turned her little HOA gathering into something else entirely. Karen's heels crunched over the gravel as she stormed up to me, face flushed red under her heavy makeup. "You can't lock people in," she barked, trying to grab the padlock. I didn't move. "You broke in," I said, keeping my tone steady, "so I figured I'd help you stay a while." Behind her, the music kept thumping, kids screaming with joy, the smell of grilled burgers filling the air. No one realized what was happening yet, but I could see panic flicker in her eyes when she glanced back at the closed gate. "You'll regret this," she hissed. "You're violating HOA regulations." I raised an eyebrow. Funny, considering I'm not part of your HOA. That shut her up for a second, then she pulled out her phone and started dialing. "I'm calling the sheriff," she said loudly, loud enough for the nearby crowd to hear. "We'll see how long you laugh when you're in cuffs for trespassing on our land." I didn't stop her, I wanted her to call. 5 minutes later, she strutted back toward me, trying to look victorious. "They're on their way," she said smugly, "and when they get here, they'll make you open that gate." I looked her straight in the eye. "That's perfect," I said, "because I already called them too." Her smirk faltered. "You what?" I figured, I continued. "It's only fair they hear both sides. I told them about the event permits you don't have, the electricity you're stealing from my barn, and that nice little cash envelope you collected at the gate." Her lips parted but no sound came out. She just stood there, suddenly smaller, suddenly unsure. From across the field, a man in a volunteer shirt called, "Karen, we're out of ice. Should we send someone to the store?" She didn't answer. She just kept glaring at me, her fake confidence cracking like thin glass. I leaned in slightly, lowering my voice so only she could hear. "You know, I almost felt bad until I checked those buses' license plates. None of them belong to anyone from this neighborhood. You invited people from other towns, didn't you? Probably charged them for it." Her mouth tightened. "Looks like your little HOA empire's about to have a very public inspection," I added. Somewhere in the distance, sirens began to wail. Karen's face went pale. The music suddenly didn't sound so cheerful anymore. The first patrol car rolled up, lights flashing against the dusk. The music stopped mid-beat as people turned to look. Karen waved her hands dramatically, yelling, "Over here, officer, arrest him, he's holding us hostage." I didn't move an inch. The sheriff's deputy stepped out, his boots crunching on the dirt. I recognized him, Deputy Mills. We served on the same volunteer search team a few years back. His eyes met mine, then flicked to the crowd, the parked buses, and finally to Karen. "Ma'am," he said carefully, "can you explain what's going on here?" She jumped right in. "This man locked my entire HOA inside his property. He's breaking a dozen laws: trespassing, unlawful imprisonment, obstruction." I cut her off, calm and steady. Deputy, before you go further, I'd like to show you something. I reached into my truck and pulled out a thick brown folder, property papers, recent survey maps, and a letter from the county confirming the land boundaries. I'd kept them handy ever since Karen started her nonsense about community control. Mills skimmed through the pages, then turned toward her. Ma'am, this land isn't part of your HOA jurisdiction. Karen froze. That's impossible. We expanded last year. It's all under association management. He shook his head. Not according to the county, and by the looks of it, he gestured toward the buses. You brought about 200 people onto private property without permission. That's trespassing. Her voice went shrill. No, no, they're guests they paid for. She stopped herself, realizing what she'd just admitted. Mills raised an eyebrow. They paid. The crowd began whispering. Some parents pulled their kids closer, looking confused. One man from the grill called out, "Hold up, Karen, you said this was community land. We paid $50 each for this." Karen's face turned the color of her wine. It was a donation. The deputy folded his arms. A donation for an event you held without a permit on land that doesn't belong to you. He turned to me. Robert, would you like to press charges? I didn't answer right away. I let Karen squirm, her fancy sandals sinking into the dirt she'd claimed to own. Finally, I said, not yet, deputy. Let's just make sure everyone gets home safe first. But then I saw the flash of Karen's phone screen. She was recording me, muttering into the camera. This man's dangerous, he's threatening the HOA. She was setting up her next move. And I knew right then this wasn't over. Karen kept her phone aimed at me, her voice trembling but loud enough for the crowd to hear. Everyone, stay back. He's dangerous, he locked us in here and now he's threatening me. I couldn't help but laugh under my breath. Karen, I said quietly, you might want to check who's really recording. Right then, Deputy Mills nodded toward the second patrol car pulling in. This one had a mounted dash cam facing the whole scene. Two more officers stepped out, one carrying a small body cam already blinking red. Every word she said was now being documented. Karen noticed it a second too late. Her hand dropped, her fake tears vanishing. Ma'am, the other officer said, we're going to need you to stop recording and step aside. She hesitated, but Mills added, for your own good. Still, she wasn't done. She snapped back, you cops don't understand, I'm the HOA president, I have rights. That got a few chuckles from the crowd. Someone whispered, not on his land, you don't. Karen spun around, glaring at them. The mask was slipping fast. Her voice cracked as she yelled, do you people want this entire neighborhood blacklisted? He's a troublemaker, he'll ruin our property values. I took a step forward, calm as ever. You mean the property you don't own, the one you built your picnic tables on without asking? I motioned toward the crowd. She used your money for this mess, you should probably ask for receipts. That was it. The group erupted in murmurs, people checking their phones, realizing she'd taken cash transfers, some even pulling up messages showing her event fee. Karen's face went white as a paper plate. One father came up to her, waving his phone. You said this was approved by the county, he shouted. You scammed us, didn't you? Of course not, she stammered, backing up toward the locked gate. That's when Mills spoke again, his tone now firm. Ma'am, we'll need you to hand over your ID. You're under investigation for unlawful entry, fraud, and misuse of public funds. Karen's jaw dropped open. This is insane, you're all taking his side because he's. I raised my hand, because I'm what Karen. Her voice faltered, but she didn't finish the sentence. She didn't know that the man she'd been bullying for months wasn't just some quiet landowner. I'd spent 12 years in the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, the very people who design and enforce property zoning and land ownership laws. And I wasn't about to let her walk away this time. The moment I mentioned the Army Corps, the officers exchanged a look. Mills gave a small nod, he'd heard about my service before. Karen, though, went pale as chalk. You're lying, she snapped. You're just saying that to scare me. I opened the folder again and slid out a laminated ID. This, I said, holding it up, isn't to scare you, it's to remind you that paperwork beats drama every time. The golden seal caught the flashing police lights and a few gasps came from the crowd. Karen's confidence evaporated like mist. She took a shaky step back, tripping slightly on the uneven ground. So what, you think being military means you can do whatever you want? I shook my head. No, ma'am, it means I actually understand the law you just broke. The deputy leaned toward me and whispered, "You want us to take it from here?" I nodded. "Yeah, but let them all go first." He motioned to another officer who began unlocking the gate. The steel creaked as it opened and the buses started their slow retreat, headlights sweeping across the yard. Parents hurried their kids back on board, whispering angrily about refunds and never trusting that woman again. Karen stood frozen as the crowd thinned, no one daring to look her in the eye. Her little empire was crumbling right there in the dirt. Then, as the last bus rolled out, she suddenly lunged forward, pointing a finger at me. "You think you've won? I'll sue you. The HOA will take your property. You'll be the one ruined." I almost felt sorry for her, almost. "Karen," I said softly, "I built this land with my own hands. Every fence, every stone, every acre. You can't take what's already mine." The deputy cleared his throat. "Ma'am, that's enough. You're coming with us." She tried to protest, but he gently turned her around and clicked the cuffs. The sound echoed through the quiet night, sharper than any insult she could throw. As they led her toward the cruiser, she twisted her neck to glare at me one last time. "You'll regret this," she screamed. I just smiled. "Maybe, but at least I won't regret locking that gate." The car door slammed and the red-blue lights started moving down the road. I exhaled slowly, staring at the mess left behind: torn napkins, spilled drinks, and trampled flowers. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered. A calm voice on the other end said, "Mr. Robert, this is Detective Gray from the county's zoning department. We need to talk about that HOA. Seems Karen wasn't acting alone." My grip tightened on the phone. "Not alone?" I asked, glancing toward the empty road where the cruiser's lights faded into the night. Detective Gray's voice was low, steady. "We've been investigating multiple HOA fraud complaints in your county. Karen's just one of 3 presidents tied to the same real estate developer. They've been expanding HOA boundaries illegally, claiming private land, holding events, even forging county approval documents." I felt my pulse pick up. "You're saying this was planned?" "Planned," he said grimly, "and profitable. They collect community fees, funnel them through shell accounts, then flip properties for inflated prices. Your land was their next project." I looked over at my barn, the power cords still hanging where her people had plugged in. I could almost hear Karen's smug voice echoing in my head, "It's all community land, Robert." "Detective," I said, my tone firm, "I have everything on video. My CCTV covers the entire property, and I've got receipts of her taking cash." There was a pause on the line, then a hint of relief. "That's exactly what we need. Don't touch anything. My team will be there at dawn." When I hung up, the night felt heavier, quieter. I walked over to the old gate and ran my hand along the cold metal. The padlock still hung there, scratched but strong. That's when headlights flashed behind me, another car pulling up, but this one wasn't police. A sleek black SUV rolled to a stop by the fence, tinted windows, engine idling. The driver's door opened and a man in a tailored suit stepped out. No badge, no smile, just a cold, calculating stare. He called out, "Mr. Robert Wright?" His voice was smooth, too smooth. "We represent the HOA's legal committee. We'd like to discuss a settlement before this gets complicated." I didn't answer right away. The man's shoes crunched over the dirt like he wasn't used to being anywhere without pavement. He stopped a few feet away, lowering his tone. "You're a smart man. You don't want this to become a federal property dispute, do you?" I smiled faintly. "You came all the way out here to threaten me." He chuckled softly. "Not a threat, a friendly negotiation. You give us usage rights to this land temporarily and we'll make sure this all disappears." I stepped closer, my voice low enough that only he could hear. "You're too late. The county knows. The detective called me 10 minutes ago." For the first time, his confident smirk slipped. I tilted my head toward my porch camera, the red light blinking steadily. "You might want to start smiling again. You're being recorded." He froze, eyes darting toward the lens. Then, without a word, he turned, got back into the SUV, and drove off into the darkness. I watched the taillights vanish beyond the trees. Something told me Karen's little stunt had just uncovered something much bigger, something these people weren't ready for the world to see. By sunrise, the ranch was quiet again except for the crunch of tires on gravel as 3 unmarked county vehicles pulled up. Detective Gray stepped out first, coffee in hand, eyes scanning the property like he'd been here before. "Morning, Robert," he said. "You weren't exaggerating." Behind him came 2 forensic techs already unpacking cameras and evidence bags. They started photographing the trampled grass, the burnt-out extension cords, the scattered envelopes I'd collected from the ground last night. Gray nodded toward the barn. "You said they were using your power." "Yeah," I replied. "Karen's crew plugged right into my breaker box. Could have started a fire." He muttered, "Typical, they don't even know what boundaries mean." As the team worked, Gray showed me a folder filled with documents, property maps, emails, and something that made my stomach drop. "These," he said, "are digital copies of forged county permits. They've been using these to convince homeowners their HOA can expand. Karen's name is on 5 of them." I stared at the papers. She really thought she could just steal land with paperwork. Gray gave a half smile. "Most people won't fight it. You did, that's why we're here." Before I could respond, one of the techs called out, "Detective, you'll want to see this." He held up a drone, Karen's drone. Its camera light was still blinking. Gray took it, scrolled through the footage, and let out a low whistle. "Looks like Karen filmed her entire scam, cash collection, buses, even the confrontation with you." "Can you recover it?" I asked. He nodded, already downloading it. For a moment, we both stood there in silence, watching the morning light cut across the fields. It should have felt peaceful, but something in Gray's expression told me it wasn't over. He turned to me, lowering his voice. "There's one more thing. The HOA developer behind this mess, name's Dempsey. He's powerful, connected, and not the type to give up quietly. If he sent someone to negotiate last night, he's trying to bury this before we dig deeper." I remembered the man in the black SUV. The way he'd smiled like he already owned the ground he stood on. Gray handed me a card. "If anything strange happens, calls, letters, people hanging around, you call me first, not 911. "Understood," I said. As he walked back to his car, I glanced toward the gate. The lock was still there, but something about it looked different, looser. When I touched it, it slid open without resistance. Someone had already been back during the night. My stomach tightened as I held the open lock in my hand. It hadn't been cut or forced, the latch had been picked, clean and quiet. Whoever came back knew exactly what they were doing. Detective Gray noticed my expression. "What is it?" he asked, walking back. I held up the lock. "Someone was here," I said, "after the SUV left.